Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and I welcome all of you back to another Chris Chan article, where today, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be exploring Chris's fantasies in the quote-unquote fantasy section of the Quictionary. And this one is, this is kind of like the first one we've seen this one. This article, like Chris's pickle, is a bit small. You're going to help Quickie by expanding it. We might have to check out if that actually leads. Let's see if that leads to anything first. You do not have permission to edit this page for the various version. The action you have requested is limited to users of the administrators. Chris. You can view, copy the source of this page. Explanation. According to Chris, only beings that are just as powerful as him are able to interact with the residents of dimensions outside our own, which he refers to as OCs. He has determined that the primary cause of this is from a mysterious force he refers to as the Fourth Wall. He describes it as being an impenetrable barrier. Hang on a minute, is this... Alright, okay, let's just do this properly. First of all, yes, this is what Chris actually believes. Pinkie Pie leaping out of the screen, as if cartoon characters were actually real. But let's dig into this a bit further. Fourth walls are the barriers that separate all dimensions from one another. According to Chris, its name derives from the trope breaking the fourth wall, where fictional characters of a media go to interact with the audience. Which, technically he's not wrong, but he's not right either. Explanation. According to Chris, only beings that are just as powerful as him are able to interact with the residents of dimensions outside our own, which he refers to as OCs. He has determined that the primary cause of this is from a mysterious force he refers to as the Fourth Wall. He describes it as being an impenetrable barrier that only the OCs are able to pass through for a short period of time and directly communicate with the viewer. He believes that a few of these OCs are also watching everything that the people on Earth Dimension Earth are doing, chronicling it and even channeling them. In Chris's case, he believes that the OC Quick Cyclite, whom it was meant to be a CPU goddess representation of the Quickie itself, that's kind of interesting, I'm not giving into it, is his metaphysical chronicler. Chris has also stated that ever since the dimensional merge, the people have survived are returning the favor of being stalked by cartoon characters by becoming one with the cartoon characters themselves. That's his explanation of what the Fourth Wall is. When the Fourth Wall, in terms of media, is literally just the layer in which sometimes a character might just crack a joke and literally just straight up talk to the viewer. Deadpool is a very good example. Neptune from the Hyperdimension Neptunia franchise, which Chris stole a lot of that lore for the dimensional merge to begin with, because as you can probably see already, that's actually the end of the article. And at the risk of this sounding a bit short, I may as well just impart as much as my ideas while I can. The first issue anybody would have with the concept of the Fourth Wall is that it is not comparable to any form of actual reality, because the characters that are breaking the Fourth Wall are still in the show. They are not necessarily leaping through the screen, they are just talking to the viewer. Now, that is by far where it begins and ends in most cases, but I think in the case of Chris, who we all know is desperate for loneliness, desperate with loneliness anyway, and, well, that basically his peculiar attachment to the laws of Quickville and to cartoons is already very clear and apparent to virtually everyone involved. It doesn't take much time or effort or any great skill, for that matter, for anybody to see that Chris has become so attached to this idea that he has turned it into his own personal, reality. Because if he believes in... Because the real world for him is already such a bad place for him, then there's honestly no hope for him to even think about trying out anywhere else. So the only alternative is for him to just create a world that is of his own, meaning that he has full control over, and probably by the inclusion of concepts like the fourth wall, Chris believes that he can talk to the characters themselves. But unfortunately, what Chris, as Alec Ben-Salery has pointed out to Chris, is that even in the case of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, that characters that break the fourth wall are still written that way. They are still had to be finalized by, you know, producers and screenwriters and directors and all that. It's still just fictional. It's just a clever little bit of a clever joke they decide to make. Chris takes things so literally that is what he will choose to believe, and virtually nothing else. You don't think other, you know, cartoon characters can exist in reality? No. And then Chris will call them naive. This is despite the fact that Chris has he has no proof whatsoever. He has no grounds to say stuff like that, and he has absolutely no way he could prove this otherwise, which is pretty bad considering Chris is adamantly trying to make people believe in his nonsense. And yet, as far as anybody who with half a brain cell will be able to tell you, there is absolutely no way he can or ever will. But as long as people roleplay with him on Twitter, then he will continue to spout this nonsense as though it were law and of his religion. And because of that, this idea will still stand. And if this is let me just do something very quickly. I want to look up the idea, guys. Anyway, let's just see. I'm gonna actually look up as to whether or not I've actually made any videos based on this, because there is a lot to go over with this, and I don't necessarily want to like spoil anything, but that's a very big article I want to be able to do. So because a lot of stuff like this, including a lot of the fantasy stuff, revolves into it, and I'll get to talking about that very, very soon. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this article of Chris and the Fourth Wall, and I will hope to see all of you guys again in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye for now.